Hey everyone, Jerron Music here. Today I'm really saddened to hear about the recent passing of Taylor Hawkins. He was the drummer for the Foo Fighters, the world famous rock band, a band that was very influential to me in my formative years as a musician. So I think it's important to do a tribute to him as a musician, how he influenced that band, rock music, and myself. So hang tight, hold for the intro. Once again, for anyone here new that's joining, I'm Jerron Music, an independent artist based in the New York City area, as you saw from the intro. For anyone new watching, this is a community that I'm building, not only to obviously promote myself as a musical artist and a musician with my originals and covers, but also explore, a variety of different music topics like reaction videos, behind the scenes, and so much more. So if that's something you'd be into, I encourage you to subscribe, hit that button, hit the notifications. You'll be the first to know when I put up that new content. And for anyone that's a current subscriber, I want to thank you for being part of the journey here. So if you want to go beyond just a spectator, a viewer, become a subscriber. But if you want to go beyond a subscriber, I encourage you to join my exclusive community over at Patreon, where I'm going to do special content for members over there. So you can check that, the links in the description. All right, let's get on with it. Now, to be clear, this is not going to be like a biopic on Taylor Hawkins. I don't know him personally. I never did. But as is the case with a lot of our musicians and artists that we look up to or feel inspired by, we kind of feel we know them in some sense, right? And that's the beautiful thing about that relationship. You can never meet a hero, an icon, an actor, a dancer, a musician, but you just feel so connected to them. So what I'm going to focus on in this video is I'm going to cite a couple of excerpts from some articles about Taylor and how he got started with the Foo Fighters, but also we're going to do a little listening session to some of his drumming. And he was more than just a drummer too. He was a singer, he was a songwriter, and from what I hear, he was a very jovial person, and he really crossed paths with a lot of famous celebrities. I'll mention that too. So I think this is a good time in the video to listen to a little bit of Taylor's drumming, and this is one of my favorite tracks from one of my favorite Foo Fighters albums, probably my favorite one. It's called There's Nothing Left to Lose. It was released in 1999, so about a good 2 years later after he became a full-time member. And I'll read a little bit about the backstory of how this album came together, but let's dig in and just listen to a little bit of this song, which was a hit single and a big popular video on MTV at the time when MTV used to show music videos. All right, let's take a little listen to Learn to Fly. That was a great fill, by the way. Let's listen to that again. So he's riding. Listen to this. And this kind of rhythm here in the verses, it works really well. It has this stutter. Boom, boom, boom. They add the tambourine. Hook me up a new revolution. This one is alive. Boom, ba, boom, boom, ba. Boom, ba, boom, boom, ba. Boom, ba, ba. He's building, he's building. Opening it up now. Real crisp drum fills, if you can listen to them. And just the right amount of aggression. Absolutely love it. You can tell he's very mindful about, being musical, not being so busy. Sometimes less is more, and I think he's very aware of that, and it shows in his musicality. So a quick brief history on the Foo Fighters. If you are a Gen Zer, under the age of 30, maybe you've never heard of the Foo Fighters, and that's okay. They are a middle-aged rock band in their 40s and 50s. But I'm sure you've heard of Nirvana. Hopefully you have. If you haven't, quick history on them. So Nirvana was one of the biggest bands in the world world in the early 90s when I was a young teenager in my formative years. And they spearheaded the grunge movement in a lot of ways. At least they definitely got a lot of eyeballs on it. They weren't the only player on the scene to influence the grunge genre and the grunge sound, but they definitely popularized it with the advent of MTV, their music videos, their style, their look, their vibe. It was definitely a shift in the culture. So the members of the band were Dave Grohl, which we'll talk more about. He was the drummer for Nirvana. Keep that in mind. Chris Novoselic, the bass player. And of course, Kurt Cobain, who was the guitarist, singer, and songwriter. So they were a three-piece rock band that were very, very mighty with a big sound, the way they were produced, and the way they wrote the songs. So when Nirvana disbanded, Dave Grohl eventually put out his own album under the moniker The Foo Fighters. Google where the name Foo Fighters came from, it's pretty interesting. So that was released about 1995, and Dave Grohl played all the parts on that album. Guitars, vocals, bass, and drums, of course. That album was a surprise hit for everyone. No one expected the drummer from Nirvana, Dave Grohl, to obviously be suddenly a frontman. So fast forward to 1997, he fills out a full band, and he records his next album, which was a bit more polished, a heavier rock sound, a little less grungy. That was called The Color and the Shape. That was also an influential album for me. It's got some hit songs, some of which we've all grown up hearing, like My Hero, Everlong, Monkey Wrench. Great songs, by the way. And right around that time in 1997, that's kind of when he crossed paths with Taylor. Taylor was playing drums for another well-known artist of the time, Alanis Morissette. And again, if you're a Gen Zer, Google her. She's amazing. Let me read an excerpt from Wikipedia to kind of piece this together. After touring through the spring of 1996, Foo Fighters entered a Seattle studio with producer Jill Norton to record its second album. Conflict during recording reportedly erupted between Dave Grohl and drummer William Goldsmith, eventually causing Goldsmith to leave the band. The band regrouped in Los Angeles and almost completely re-recorded the album with Grohl on drums. The album, The Color and the Shape, was released on May 20th, 1997. Grohl called Hawkins, an acquaintance at the time, seeking his recommendations for a new drummer to join the band. Grohl was under the impression that Hawkins would not leave Morissette's touring band, given she was a bigger act than Foo Fighters at the time. To Grohl's surprise, however, Hawkins volunteered to join the band himself, explaining that he wanted to be a drummer in a rock band rather than a solo act. The band announced Hawkins would be its new drummer on March 18th, 1997. So that was really interesting for me to read because, it kind of explained the entrance of Taylor into the band. Also, a little bit into Taylor's dynamic. He wanted to be part of a unit. And again, I think that's very telling of Taylor as a musician and a musical artist, where his mindset was. He wanted to be part of a cohesive unit, something that he could have some input in. All right, let's listen to another track from, again, my favorite album, There's Nothing Left to Lose. I always love this one. Sounds Christmassy. Even though it's just a tambourine, but it sounds like a sleigh bell. But listen, there's Dave Grohl's voice. Now again, this is a three-piece. It's Nate Mandel on bass, Dave Grohl singing and guitar, and Taylor on drums. Listen to Taylor's drumming on this song. It's very big, very crisp. His hi-hat work. That hi-hat. That drum set has such a good room sound. That's very important, getting a good room sound for drums. That's a great fill. That's a great fill. That is a great example of, the band just holding out or accenting on a chord. And, there's really, the sense of time is internal within musicians. They're all counting and feeling it. But it's the drummer's job, especially if he has to come back in with a fill, to bring everyone back in. And Taylor does such a good job. I want to hear that one more time, actually. Oh, that was awesome. It's a 1-bar fill, 4 beats, but he plays with the rhythm. So there's a point there in the fill where it feels like you lose the sense of time, but it comes in and he's right on the money back on the next bar. That's very, very amazing. That's awesome. No one will find us now, living with our heads underground. 2, 3, 4, boom, cha, boom, ba, da, 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 And that's what I was talking about. That's where a musical drummer, one that's instinctive, is serving the song, really, really shows their true artistry. And that's what Taylor did at that moment. Let's look at that moment again in the pre-chorus. No one can find us now, living with our heads underground. 2, 3, 4. Boom, ba, boom, boom, da, 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 ba, da, da, da. Into the night we shine. And it's, to me, it feels like a 1-bar, 4 beats drum fill, okay? There's 4 beats to a bar and 4/4 time. But what he does on the last 2 beats, beats 3 and 4, it really, he just plays with the rhythm. Let me bring that up here again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. Again, listen again. Beats 3 and 4 feel like it's going to fall off the track, but if you conduct that steadily, unless someone else voices a different opinion, I don't really hear like an odd time signature, like a 6/8 or a 7/8 in there. But it feels straight. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. Yeah. But it's that feeling that he had. He kind of made that feel a little fluid on the second half of it. And that really shows, a good instinct, a good intuition by a drummer. In addition to drumming with the Foo Fighters, Hawkins also provided vocals, guitar, and piano to various recordings. And here on Wikipedia is just a list of all the many artists that he has encountered and collaborated with. For the sake of time and brevity on this video, I won't read all those entire excerpts, but just kind of pinpointing around Brian May, the guitarist from Queen. He had some collaboration there. Slash, the guitarist from Guns N' Roses. Iggy Pop. I mean, it's a who's who. He really just was a musician's musician out there collaborating with people, not just sticking to one project, but, obviously his heart and soul was with the Foo Fighters, but diversifying and really spreading his wings as an artist. Regarding Taylor's influences, he goes on to say, "It was thanks to Rush that I got into Genesis. After listening to Neil Peart, that is, he was the drummer of Rush, I bought the Second Ounce live album, which was released in 1977. It's just amazing, not only hearing Phil Collins playing the drums, but also singing. Collins is an incredible drummer. Anyone who wants to be good on the drums should check him out. The man is a master." This Wikipedia entry goes on to say Hawkins' first 2 major inspirations were Roger Taylor and Stuart Copeland. He reported that listening to those 2 different drummers' different styles showed him a wide spectrum of drumming style. He also mentioned that he would play along with songs on the radio or records like Queen's News of the World to enhance his skills when he was young. Oh, I can so totally relate to this. And again, you can see my electronic drum kit here. I bought it recently during the pandemic. Always loved playing drums. And again, I'm not an all-star drummer, but I'm pretty good. So let's talk a little bit about the making of this album. 22 years ago, Foo Fighters released There Is Nothing Left to Lose. And I cite, prior to recording There Is Nothing Left to Lose, Foo Fighters dismissed guitarist Franz Stahl, who had joined the band after the exit of Pat Smear. Stahl was a longtime friend of Dave Grohl's, predating Grohl's time in Nirvana, but his Foo Fighters stint just did not work out, and the band parted ways with the guitarist very early in rehearsals for the new disc. I was in tears, Grohl told The Guardian about Stahl's exit from the band, but that just unified the trio of Grohl, bassist Nate Mandel, and drummer Taylor Hawkins. So let's listen to another song from the album. So he's just locking it in. Locking in real nice with the bass. That's what I love about Taylor. He's listening to what the bass player's doing. He knows when to lock in, he knows when to leave and take the rhythm charge of it. He's just digging in. loves that kind of feel. He loves that fill a lot. It's very much a staple of his sound. He does it again. He loves that fill, and it works. Those kind of machine gun fills. Taka, taka, taka. Great song. Another great example of Taylor's drumming and musicianship. Another unifying factor was the fact that the band was in between record labels. After recording their first 2 discs for Capitol, the band was free of label intervention and decided to leave Hollywood, a place Grohl was becoming more and more disenchanted with, and set up shop in a basement studio he constructed at his home in Alexandria, Virginia. He called upon Adam Kasper to produce, and the trio got away from the LA trappings as they set about recording their 3rd release. Quote, "Throw all the rockstar BS out the window and you'll find something to believe in," said Grohl at the time. "We were left completely to our own devices. The recording was purely our creation. It was complete and not open to outside tampering. That included the decision to go back to tape. The way we recorded was so real natural," said the singer. "We didn't use any computers, anything digital, or any of that auto-tuning shite. All you need are songs that deserve to be heard, a couple of friends, and a genuine direction." As for that direction, Grohl told Kerrang, quote, "It was all about just settling into the new phase of your life. That place where you can sit back and relax because there had been so much crazy shite in the past 3 years. At that point, it was me, Taylor, and Nate, and we were best friends. It was one of the most relaxing times of my whole life. All we did was eat chili, drink beer and whiskey, and record whenever we felt like it. When I listen to that record, it totally brings me back to that basement. I remember how it smelled and how it was in the spring, so the windows were open, and we'd do vocals until you could hear the birds through the microphone. And more than any other record I've ever done, the album does that to me." That's, again, very powerful to me. It resonates. I'm glad that Taylor was part of that experience with Dave and with Nate. And I think that comes across in the recordings of that album. And for me, as a fan of the Foo Fighters, it transports me. It brings me back to, that period in my life where I was graduating high school in 1999, starting a new chapter in my own life, going into college. That's the power that music can have, right? What songs can do, what artists can do. They can take you back. They can, like a time machine, transport you to a point in time and just evoke these memories. I also encourage you to do a deep dive on the Foo Fighters. They have lots of albums, especially if you are someone young watching this. It'd be nice to, go back to the 90s and early 2000s when rock music was still prevalent on the radio. Also, obviously, check out some of Taylor's stuff. He was involved, like I said, in a lot of projects. Go do a deep dive on him, and I'm sure you'll come across some good stuff. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. It's hard to take anyone's life, let alone the musical impact they had, and just kind of edit it down to about a 20-minute video. But I tried to do my best in familiarizing myself with a little bit about his life and how he got into music, and then share that with you. So I'm curious, drop in the comments. If you're a Gen Xer, a boomer, or a millennial like me, let me know what the Foo Fighters meant to you, Dave Grohl, Taylor Hawkins, and Nirvana. If you're a Gen Zer and you weren't around for the birth of all that, but you are aware of Foo Fighters or recently discovered them because of this video, let me know what aspects you enjoyed learning, and if you are now a Taylor Hawkins, Dave Grohl, and Foo Fighters fan. I'm going to put up a couple of things over here worth checking out. One of them will probably be a playlist. One of them will be a performance video of me doing either a cover or an original. I encourage you to check that out. And again, if you want to go beyond just being a spectator, become a subscriber over here. And if you're a subscriber and you want to take it a step further, you can become part of my exclusive community at Patreon. The links are in the description. One of the perks for becoming a patron is getting shout-outs at the end of YouTube videos that might be coming up after this. Till next time, I'm Jerron Music. Stay safe out there.